And that's God right there for me. That he's putting me in a place to share a message when I think it's just for me. I need to hear it. I need to say something today. Um, sometimes I forget that others need to hear that, and that's God's divine intervention.
Hey, F3 Omaha, welcome back to Q Source TV, where we explore the Manual of Virtuous Leadership, or Q Source. In light of last week's events, I've been doing a lot of self-reflecting. I've been on X a lot more than I like to be, mostly watching a lot of Charlie Kirk's videos, whether it's part of his show or when he goes on the college campuses. And not to get political, I like to keep things neutral in that regard when it comes to Q Source TV. But from a faith perspective, I had a hard time finding a better example of how to lead my faith life, or a better example of a man who practiced what he preached than Charlie Kirk in those videos. And he did it in a respectful way, even if he didn't agree with the views of some of the folks that he was debating with, or some of the views that he talked about on his show. When it came to faith, he was consistent. He always used the Bible as his source, and he was never demeaning or disrespectful to anyone, at least in the videos that I've seen, and I've watched a lot of videos over the last 5 days or so. With that, I'm going to start leading my life a little bit more intentionally when it comes to my faith. And I want to start off with, I believe this is Charlie Kirk's favorite prayer. I think he said it on one of the interviews that I watched. It's Romans 8, and he didn't specify the verses, so I'm just going to read the first two verbatim. Therefore, there is now no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus, because through Christ Jesus, the law of the Spirit who gives life has set you free from the law of sin and death. So I hope to start every Q Source TV with a prayer, and hopefully it's linked somehow to that week's topic, or something going on in my life. But I just thought that out of respect for Charlie Kirk, that I would kick off that tradition with what I believe he mentioned was his favorite Bible verse, and it's a good one. Um, I used to think that I was living my faith, but really I was just kind of living a minimum viable product. Try to go to church most Sundays, try to be a good example for my family in that regard. But really, I wasn't really living life to its fullest, or faith to its fullest. And in John 8, it says, and this is the famous, let any one of you who is without sin be the first to cast a stone, when they're going to stone the prostitute in the Bible story. Of course, no one throws a stone. And Charlie Kirk, in one of his debates that I watched over the past few days, he went further explaining what this John 8 chapter meant. And it's verses 10 to 11 that I want to read here. Jesus straightened up and asked her, "Woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you?" The woman replies, "No one, sir," she said. "Then neither do I condemn you," Jesus declared. "Go now and leave your life of sin." And it was always that second part. God gives grace. Jesus gives grace. So he gave grace to the prostitute. But then, and again, I want to give all credit to Charlie Kirk for this. He says, leave your life of sin. So it's not just that God gives you grace and you're off the hook. You also have to, if you follow Jesus and if you want to give yourself up to the life of Jesus, at least the way I interpret it and what I'm going to do for myself is you need to leave your life of sin as well. So I hope to start doing that in my own life, and I hope to be that kind of an example for my family and for my proximity and my concentrica. So anyways, just wanted to share that with you here at the top. These last few days have been transformative and very powerful, and I think for me personally, and I think that really segues well into the TWP, this week's principle, practice, or philosophy from Q Source, which is Get Right, which is the first quadrant, the pursuit of proper personal alignment. It's kind of funny how things work out, going back to faith. We happen to have a Q that we'll get into later today that I've had conversations with in the gloom about faith, and then just with what happened last week and thinking about my own life and how I need to get more right in my spiritual faith for sure. It just funny how this topic happened to land on that week. Couple things out of Q Source that I wanted to highlight from Quadrant 1 Get Right that I really liked from this chapter is only in maturity does a man develop the discipline and desire to consistently promote the cause of his loved ones over his own. That is right. And for me, the process of getting right is how I read that. But he can't do it beset by gluttony and sloth. So this is where, for me, I was gluttonous and I had sloth in my life and still do, obviously. But really, this highlighted what I needed to change and how I needed to get right and really start living my faithful life and not give in to gluttony and sloth. And it can be represented by a lot of things, gluttony and sloth. But a movie that I thought of, I always like to relate this to movies if I can, really is Good Will Hunting. And the main character in that movie, which is Matt Damon's character, Will Hunting, he has a lot of gluttony and a lot of sloth. And relating it back to Q Source, there's a few scenes that I want to share with you from the movie that really highlight this chapter of Get Right for me. The first one is when he's on the park bench with his therapist, Robin Williams. It's a court-ordered therapist that he has to see. And basically, this is about putting others ahead of yourself and the people that matter to you ahead of yourself. And Robin Williams really lays into him and really lets him know that, he kind of pissed off Robin Williams on their last therapy session. And he's laying into this kid and kind of setting him straight and hopefully starting his path of getting right. Check it out.
And you wouldn't know what it's like to be her angel. To have that love for her be there forever. Through anything. Through cancer. And you wouldn't know about sleeping sitting up in a hospital room for 2 months holding her hand because the doctors could see in your eyes that the terms visiting hours don't apply to you. You don't know about real loss. Because that only occurs when you love something more than you love yourself. I doubt you've ever dared to love anybody that much.
As for the topics of sloth and gluttony specifically, sloth is really represented for me by how Will is so apathetic towards his own potential. If you haven't seen the movie, he's a genius. He's solving very complex math problems at Harvard, but he's a janitor and he has a criminal past and he had a tough upbringing. So he is refusing to accept that his upbringing is what it is, but it doesn't have to define who he is going forward. And so he really leans on sloth to just kind of blame his past, to not reach or confront his potential and to get right. As far as gluttony, he has a lot of emotional self-protection. He won't let anyone in during the movie. You'll see that. And he has a lot of indulgence in his uncomfortable, unchallenged life. Sure, he's very intellectual and he could go on to help change the world with his intellect. That's how smart he is. But he'd rather just hang out with his friends and go to the bars and really never tap into that potential. He'd rather even work at a construction site the rest of his life, despite what he could do for humanity and for others. And this next scene is when him and his best friend, Chucky, Ben Affleck's character, are at the construction site. And Ben Affleck kind of lays into him a little bit and lets him know how he could get right.
Because I'd do fucking anything to have what you got. So would any of these fucking guys. It'd be an insult to watch if you're still here in 20 years. Hanging around here is a fucking waste of your time.
You don't know that.
I don't?
No, you don't know
Oh,
that.
I don't know that. Let me tell you what I do know. Every day I come by your house and I pick you up. And we go out, we have a few drinks and a few laughs, and it's great. You know what the best part of my day is? It's for about 10 seconds from when I pull up to the curb when I get to your door. Because I think maybe I'll get up there and I'll knock on the door and you won't be there. No goodbye, no see you later, no nothing. You just left. I don't know much, but I know that.
Now, there is a love interest in the movie, and really between Robin Williams' therapist character and the love interest, this is where you see some of the walls that Will puts up start to break down. And this next scene is a very famous scene from the movie, and it's when they're in a therapy session and Robin Williams is finally getting through to Will. They've had several sessions. He's starting to understand him better, and this scene is really powerful and really shows that Will is ready to let go of that sloth, let go of that gluttony, and really start to get right.
Hey, Will. I don't know a lot. You see this? All this shit. This is not your fault. Look at me, son. It's not your fault.
I know.
It's not your fault.
I know.
No, you don't. It's not your fault.
I know.
It's not your fault.
All right.
It's not your fault. It's not your fault. Don't with me. It's not your fault.
Don't with me, all right? Don't with me, Sean. Not you.
It's not your fault. It's not your fault.
Oh my God. Oh my God, I'm so sorry.
As for a personal experience for me when it comes to Get Right, the pursuit of proper personal alignment, I've said several times over X, and I'll continue to say it, that without F3, from a fitness standpoint, I definitely wouldn't be right. As far as fellowship, having deep relationships with other men and putting them ahead of myself, something that in this world of selfishness is hard to do for me. I feel like I'm heading in the right direction. Without F3, I wouldn't have learned how to do that. And then that also goes obviously for my family members, and that's a daily commitment to try and get right so that I can have the fellowship with them that I want and the kinds of relationships that I want with them. And then as far as my faith, just kind of what I talked about at the top, and a lot of that comes through going to F3 and being in those COT circles and being in those prayer circles and getting to know other men better and understanding their lives and their struggles and how faith has helped them persevere. So all of those things have helped me get right. And without F3, I'm not sure what path I would be on now, but it definitely wouldn't be a path of getting right.
The path of the righteous man is beset on all sides by the inequities of the selfish and the tyranny of evil men.
All right, let's get to this week's Q. None other than Toto. He's a former BERM Site Q, and he's the current first F for the Northwest region. His name is Trent Freeman, and he's a Marcus program manager for Google, and that's Marcus, all capitals. If you want to know what that is, next time you see Toto in the gloom, you'll have to ask him what that's about. He joined F3 in June of 2020, so he's our most experienced guest on the Q Source TV to date, and we'll get into that a little bit. As for his bio, he's from Gridley, Kansas, population 373, and he sent me a link for Gridley, Kansas. Apparently, they're the capital of hay, or the hay capital of the United States, something like that. If you want to know more about that, again, it's a conversation starter next time you see Toto. A couple of mascots, when I asked him what his high school mascot was. The OG mascot, they were the Yellow Jackets, but then in his freshman year, they consolidated and they became the Southern Coffee County Titans. So that's a mouthful for you. He met his M in junior high, but they became Instagram official in late November 2010. He listed several hobbies. He likes paddleboarding, woodworking, playing the guitar, brewing beer, and following Kansas State University athletics. And then when it came to the characteristics of what makes a leader, again, Toto had a lot to say about this. He's a very thoughtful him if you haven't met him yet. He said they are committed to refining their craft. They're not satisfied with the status quo. They expose weakness and root it out to build a stronger self. They're not afraid to admit they make mistakes, and they have humility. But his final part of the question is my favorite. Quote, a person who follows the greatest leader of all time, being that of Jesus Christ, carries the primary ingredient of any great leader, and that's sharing their love and gratitude for others. This isn't always easy to do, and it's why I gravitate to those that exemplify this. End quote. As for my personal experience with Toto, it's tough to know where to begin. Whenever you're in the gloom with him, he's a great sounding board. He's very candid. He's very honest. He'll give you his opinion. He'll listen to what you have to say. He's very respectful when it comes to having conversations with him, which, again, alluding to last week, reminds me a lot of what I saw in these debate videos with Charlie Kirk. He is also very handy, as you heard from his hobbies. He's very crafty, and he's helped me out with a couple of shovel flags for a site that I launched, The Crucible, and also for the F3 Navy, which I helped facilitate and run. And he did it just very, you could tell that he was very excited about the process. He really wanted to get to the heart of what I was looking for to make sure that the shovel flag, which is such an important part of F3 when it comes to symbolism, would be exactly what I wanted to represent in those different organizations, the site, and then, of course, the F3 Navy. So he's, if you're looking for an honest answer, you may not always like it, but it will be honest, or you may always like it. I don't mind having conversations with Toto, but he'll definitely always be the answer that he is feeling, and then he'll give you an explanation and he'll let you know why he feels that way. And it always comes from, in my opinion, a place of love and a place of compassion. So it's an awesome interview. He's a very insightful, deep hymn, and I learned something from this interview, and I hope you do too. So check it out. All right, I'm now joined by Toto on the Q Source TV. How's it going, Toto?
Doing all right, Milk Carton. Thanks for the invite.
Absolutely. Thanks for agreeing to cue the Crucible. I'm looking forward to it. Your list of hobbies are endless, and a lot of them have to do with craftsmanship. And I got to experience your handiwork firsthand. I have a couple sites I'm involved with that needed a shovel flag, and everyone said, "Hey, just go to Toto. He'll hook you up." So when did you become shovel flag man for F3 Omaha?
I think it was what was the first flag? Maybe the Riptide. Just got brought up. We're looking for somebody to do it. New Bayside was kind of our key man for that over the last few years, and he's done a ton of shovels, and they always look stellar. And I said, man, that'd be cool if just one of these days, do a shovel myself and put some thought into it. And so, yeah, when we were looking for a shovel maker, since Bayside was no longer doing it, I raised my hand, and I haven't started to regret it yet, but the list is growing, and my wife is paying more attention to the amount of time that I'm in the garage creating dangerous toxins and fumes from all the spray painting. But it's been really good, and it's also allowed me to get to know a lot of the guys better, especially those that are launching new sites like yourself. Understand kind of the behind the scenes generation of the naming of the site, the logo, and how I can best incorporate that in the shovel and just make it special, right? Something that people want to cherish and hold on to as long as that site's functioning. So allows me an opportunity to be creative and offer that to the group. And so yeah, it's been cool. It's been fun. In fact, I'm actually working on one right now. I'm going to launch it tomorrow at Oracle. It's called F Cancer, something Portland is supporting for a cancer support group. So looking forward to sending that one on the way.
Well, shovel flags are such a sacred symbol for F3, and they let us know where to meet, especially guys like me. I went to Futurama this week. I didn't know where they met, and I saw the shovel flag, and I'm like, that's where we meet. So it's really cool that you got to be such an important part of that. That's awesome. According to PaxNet, you've emotionally headlocked or recruited 18 new brothers to F3 Omaha. That's a staggering number. I've EH none, which is pathetic, and I really want to get a lot better at it. What is your process for EHing?
A lot of it's just sharing my journey behind it. I think a lot of people gravitate to that. Um, they want something more in their life. I think that's easy to recognize, and so just by vicariously sharing your experiences, you can get a sense of that interest from them, and just being open to it. Um, Offering them an opportunity to come join you. Always try to meet them where they're at, where they're close to. Um, Loop them in with the guys that I know are going to help reach out to them and keep them coming back, and get it to where they're drinking the Kool-Aid. One thing I'm probably more proud of than just the EH number is I think there's 4 or 5 of those EH individuals that have become site Qs. And that means a lot too, that they've really taken a hold and they've made a difference in others' lives as well.
F3 is kind of unique in that when you're trying to recruit someone, at least when I've tried to recruit them, they want to know all these details. A lot of guys, they ask all these questions, and it's almost like you can't really answer all of their questions, that you kind of have to experience F3 to really understand what it's about. Describe your passion for F3 and what your experience has been like.
I hear so often from people when you're trying to recruit them or entertain the idea of them coming out to F3 that they're just not in shape, right? And I think we always hear that. Like, dude, there's 60-year-olds out here, there's 70-year-olds out here that are just wanting to be surrounded by good men. And they're not pressured. We're not trying to bust your hump to the degree that you can't come back. You're here, you're against you, but it's just so much more than fitness. I think we all understand that after you've came long enough. Fitness is a great benefactor, no doubt about it. But yeah, it's just there's so much more to be gained in terms of the fellowship um, and the faith element for me for sure.
Amen, brother. If I were to choose one word to sum up my interactions with you in the gloom, I would choose the word candid, and you're unapologetic about it, which I really admire. This week, the world lost a candid voice, and I've been struggling to understand how and why something like that can happen. And you've always provided good insight for me when I have questions in the gloom. So, can you help me understand why something like that would happen?
I've been struggling too. It's been very difficult for me to comprehend. Um, I think it's probably why I'm sitting here right now with that flag at half mast. It's just, I think Christians in general, when we stand by truth, we stand by our biblical foundation, it's going to come under attack. Um, and that's what I felt like it was yesterday. And I know there's lots of different perspectives of what happened and why it went down the way it did, and where did the evil and the anger come from. But I'm a firm believer that we're all in a spiritual war, and fighting for truth is going to bring evil your way. And um, yeah, what happened the other day, I heard a good message just this morning. It wasn't a murder that occurred, it was a martyr that occurred. And for those that maybe have never listened to Charlie, as I've been listening to him for better part of a half a decade, um, he always just brought such great perspective from a biblical foundation standpoint, and that always stood out to me. I'm always looking for solid truth, and there's nothing more true than the Bible to me. And so somebody that can recite verses in the appropriate context so that people can understand is a really gifted um, perspective that he had. And it's just a great loss. But I think I think there's most definitely good to come from this. There's going to be a lot of people that want to carry that same momentum forward, if not, accelerate what they're doing. A lot of people could stand behind him and encourage him to keep moving on. But now it's time for people to take his words of wisdom and be more vocal, I think. And so I pray that there's good to come from this. I think a lot of us do. There's a lot of healing that needs to take place all across the board. Um, just a sad day for us all, but um, you know, God is good. God has a greater plan, um, and He's gonna put us on the right path, no doubt about it.
Thanks for that. Yeah, your candidness once again. It doesn't seem like political conflict really comes up in F3 or what people do for a living. I mean, it might come up in conversation, but nobody's being judgmental or put on a pedestal or anything like that. There's no ranking system. How have you, I mean, you've been in F3 a lot longer than me. How is it that those kinds of conflicts stay out of F3? What's your experience with that?
I think I wouldn't say that it stays out of it. There's been a handful of times in which conversations have got very pugnant, if you will, and distasteful. But at the same time, I always try to get past that. I try to get through that. There's something deeper that's driving that toxicity, if you will. And so for me, it's always been coming from a perspective of love. So, there's a lot of perspective that I would share from my own point of views or the things that I'm in or the challenges that I face that I think kind of helps bring two unlike minds together a little bit, right? We're all struggling um, at some point in our life, day in and day out. And what I can always kind of lean back on is the fact that this conversation that we're having right now, not maybe you and me, but if I was in a conversation um, with somebody else that maybe I disagreed with, that this conversation right now is very powerful for us, the both of us. And it's for us to gain alignment and understand why we feel so passionate about the things that we do. And a lot of it is really from a place of love, trying to respect and honor those that we cherish and love so closely. And, oftentimes that love supersedes um, the, I would say, the belief or the disconnect that we have between each other because we want to honor somebody else's maybe trajectory or the life decisions that they're making, whether they're right or wrong. We want to honor them by loving them and showing their support through our actions towards others. So I think from a political perspective, oftentimes we do that, right? You talk about the LGBTQ perspective, and a lot of times too, we love those people, and I love those people, and I've been impacted by that in my own family. But oftentimes we get so uh, distant with each other when we try to talk about it, we talk about our foundational beliefs, or even from a biblical perspective, right? It creates so much friction a lot of times, and it's just hard to get through those conversations. And I wish we are vulnerable enough, and I know I always try to be vulnerable. You've probably been to a handful of my COTs, but I'm always speaking from the heart. And a lot of times it gets choked up, and showing that emotion, showing that vulnerability really brings a lot of that salt to the environment, right? It starts shedding light on the humanity that exists amongst us all. And so I think more of that is important for all of us. I didn't do that before F3. Um, in fact, I never prayed out loud in front of a group until F3. That was an extreme challenge for me. My first 6 months of F3 when I began leading and queuing was taking that first step and reaching out and saying a prayer for all of us. So getting closer with God each and every day for me is a goal. Don't always meet the mark. We're all faulty. We're all um, failed human beings, but putting into perspective the good in this world and chasing after the source of truth makes me a better person. And I hope to share that same message with others.
Mentioning that without F3, you had a different perspective, you had a different way of handling those kinds of conversations. Kind of leads into my next question. As you know, F3 stands for Fitness, Fellowship, and Faith. You have over 5 years of experience with F3. How is someone like you still getting stronger in fitness, fellowship, and faith?
Surrounding myself with others that I feel have uh, really shed more light on or been dedicated more so. I mean, for me, I grew up surrounded by strong Christian leaders in my family. Um, and, going to college and entering into the workforce and just kind of trying to figure out who I was. Um, there was definitely a disconnect. And when I settled into F3 and I started seeing that same um, charisma coming from other spiritual leaders within that group, I gravitate towards it. You can always pick up on those strong spiritual backgrounds and faithful leaders. But F3 is just a great platform for it, right? I mean, because there's not an expectation for you to come out and uh, the Bible. There's none of that, but there's so much good perspective always brought forth on how people make it through their own challenges, and when faith's a big part of that um, recipe to get through those challenges for them, it's a very fulfilling message most often, and something that you take home with you. And when others go through tough things, and I've said it to a lot of people, I've been spoiled. I haven't had to go through tough stuff like some have. And I just knock on wood every time I say that because I just fear that it's coming my way. Um, but it also gives me strength knowing that it can be overcome when you're faced with those, very dark hurdles in our life. Um, and I know that it can be overcome because those that have shared their stories share it. And the recipe was always their faith. And so, um, you know, getting better all across the board, whether it's your faith, um, or your fitness, surrounding yourself with people that are doing better than you, right? Giving you a target to shoot for, somebody to admire, somebody to be mentored by. Um, that's 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 the secret sauce, in my opinion.
Yeah, I've noticed that listening to COTs, someone that you admire or think is doing so much better than you might be having the same kinds of struggles with their M or their 2.0s or what have you, or at work. And it's almost reassuring that someone that you had admired for so long and you thought had all their stuff together is also going through the same things as you, and then hearing how they dealt with it in their faith and other ways. And then that gives you some power and some encouragement that things can get better for you as well.
When you're vulnerable at those COTs and you really do share your heart, man, before I can even make it home, I've got 5 or 6 text messages sharing their appreciation for my vulnerability, what it meant to them, and then even an exchange of tools, that I can use, or perspective, or just Bible verse for me to reflect on. That means the world to me from those guys, and you know who you are, that reach out and share that perspective, and also just give me a kind note, say, hey, I needed to hear that today. That's been weighing on my heart also. And so when I think about that and that connection, and that's God right there for me. That he's putting me in a place to share a message when I think it's just for me. I need to hear it. I need to say something today. Sometimes I forget that others need to hear that, and that's God's divine intervention. So, um, yeah, just want to share that.
Awesome, man. Final question. What parts of Q Source have resonated for you the most?
That Q source environment really offers an opportunity for people to just show up, share a little 2 cents about them, right? And it's usually on a more personable level, but it really starts creating a bond. It's that glue that we talk about in the gloom. I think you find it more in the Q source. The guys that wrote this Q source have really put a lot of thought into it, right? And create an annual outlook of how we can kind of approach um, getting better and reflecting on who we are as men and what our objective is, to make the world a better place. And so Q source is kind of like that second Bible, I mean, because it has been condensed and it's been modernized for us as men to be able to digest it in a more non-biblical sense, but also it is a whetstone for so many people to come there and sharpen their own knife. So excited for the Q source there at the Crucible. I think it is something that we need more of. There's lots of one-offs after cafeteria, some Bible study groups, TNT at the berm, just bringing up a topic and allow people to kind of share perspectives. Q source just gets a little deeper, a little more specific and focused. And so really looking forward to leading Q source here this coming week.
Yeah, we're looking to having Toto at the Crucible on Wednesday, and the topic is Get Right. And I really appreciate you sharing some examples of how F3 has helped you get right in your life and how it continues to help you get right. So thanks a lot, Toto. I appreciate your time.
You're welcome. Thanks, Milk Carton. Appreciate it.
All right, F3 Omaha, that's it for this week's Q Source TV. Next up, we have The Plague. I'm really excited to interview him, or maybe he'll interview me. I'm not sure how that's going to go down, but I'm excited to see how it happens. As far as Q Source, next week we have the DRP, the Daily Red Pill, which is the daily commitment to accelerate fitness, fellowship, and faith. Can't wait to put the pedal to the metal with you next week. Bye, everyone.